questions, you can re-listen to it, or if you know anyone that wants to listen to it and check out what we have to say. So with that, let me let someone else in, and I will share my screen. All right, so with that, I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to come to our parent orientation information session. My name is Benny Cohen, and I am the Director of Development for Hillels of Georgia. And this kind of came about because one, I am passionate about Birthright, but two, Birthright leads to a lot of different questions. There's a lot of things going on. And one of the experiences that I've had when I used to staff, and I've staffed 16 trips. I went on the original Birthright trip. So Birthright itself is I'm very passionate about. And I also understand that students and y'all's children sign up for Birthright trips and then don't give you any other information except for, I'm not going to be home for the holidays because I'm going on this trip to Israel. Call you when I get back. And so what we as Hillels of Georgia and our team wanted to do was just give the opportunity to kind of give you a heads up. What is this thing called Tagley Birthright Israel? What do you do on the trip? And really kind of get into a little bit to answer any questions that y'all have. And so tonight we have some guests that to kind of help paint the picture of Tagley Birthright Israel. And so really what we'll do tonight is we'll do some introductions. We'll give you a little Tagley Birthright Israel 101. We have a sample itinerary so you can see places that we've gone. And then we have some Q&A. We have some frequently asked questions that we'll go over. And then what we'll do is we'll open the floor so that you guys can ask any questions that you may have. Does that sound good to everyone? Awesome. All right. So like I said, my name is Benny Cohen. I'm the Director of Development for Hillels of Georgia. On this call right now, we have a lot of our Hillels of Georgia staff. We've got folks from University of Georgia, Emory, Kennesaw State University, Georgia Tech, Georgia State, Georgia College, Georgia Southern. So did I miss anyone? I hope not. Sorry if I did. These are all experts in the field that probably equate to over about 40 trips led in total. So a lot of experience on this call. SCAD and Georgia Tech. And so now what I'd like to do is segue and introduce you to the folks that are going to be speaking for just a little bit to just introduce you to, first off, our Hillels of Georgia interim CEO, Wayne Kyle, for just a few words about Birthright and Hillel.
Good evening, everybody. Benny has given me a strict time limit, so I'm going to obey my protege. Thank you to all of my staff who's been putting this together. I wanted to spend just a minute to talk about, first of all, by the way, I just got back from Israel yesterday morning. So if I seem a little bit out of it, I might be, because I could be jet lagged tremendously. But I wanted to explain what Hillels of Georgia is, because it is unique within the United States what we do at Hillels of Georgia. Most of us understand, and I'm my son is currently a senior who will be graduating in December. So I know the anxiety of dropping a child off at school and thinking, when am I going to see this kid again? And how is this going to go? And how's that going to work? And I think all of us, when we dropped our kids off and chose our schools, also looked at Hillel as something that was important for our children to be at. I know it was for me. And what Hillels of Georgia does is a little bit different. In most places in the country, each Hillel kind of fends for themselves. And I'll give you an example. I'm from Miami originally, and University of Central Florida and University of Miami, guess what they do all day long? They fight over donors. They fight over money. They fight over resources. What Hillels of Georgia does is it ends that. So our mission at Hillels of Georgia, at its core, is to be able to provide every Jewish student in the state of Georgia, regardless of college, regardless of the size of that Jewish population at that school. Our job is to find those Jewish students, let them know that they have some place to go, that they can have a safe place to be, and that if they want programming, we provide that programming for them. By doing it as a statewide agency, we become more efficient. We allow our directors at University of Georgia, at Emory, at Georgia Tech to really be involved in students in a way that other organizations, other Hillels rather, in the United States don't have that opportunity to. So we really leverage all of the people and all the things that we do to allow for the students in the state of Georgia to have incredible experiences. And by having the ability to pull resources, we can have programs like this for parents tonight, all across all of our campuses for all of the students that are going. And so I wanted to just spend 2 minutes explaining how Hillels of Georgia serves as the umbrella for all of the different Hillels within the state of Georgia. And if there's ever an issue that any of your students have, of course, please feel free to reach out to me or the directors so that we can get involved if need be. And thank you all so much for being here and entrusting your students with us at Hillel.
Awesome. Thank you, Wayne. And next, I'd like to introduce Doug Ross, who is representing the Tagley Birthright Israel Foundation. Doug Ross is the vice chair of the Birthright Israel Foundation and the chair of the Birthright Israel here in Atlanta.
Benny, thank you very much. Hi, everybody. Great to see all of you. I just want to spend a few minutes talking about Tagley, Birthright Israel Foundation, two sister organizations, how they interact with each other, and just to share some information. Hopefully, you'll find interesting and fun. So Birthright Israel. Let me just explain. When I use you heard Benny say Tagley Birthright Israel. So Tagley Birthright Israel is actually the formal name of the organization that takes young people on trips. It's based in Israel. I'll talk about that in a moment. But Tagley is the Hebrew word for discovery. And interestingly enough, if you mention Birthright Israel to people around the world, they'll look at you, they have no idea what you're talking about, because except for the US and Canada, everybody knows the organization as Tagley. So the formal name is Tagley Birthright Israel. And I'll talk about the foundation in a moment, but Tagley Birthright Israel was founded in 1999. It is a not-for-profit organization which provides the gift of a 10-day educational trip to Israel for Jewish young adults between the ages of 18 and 26. It's the largest educational tourism organization in the world. And our goal is nothing short of securing and transforming the Jewish future by strengthening young adults' Jewish identities and their connections with Israel. I wanted to share just a couple of interesting numbers with you. I was in Israel a few months ago for a board meeting with Birthright Israel Foundation and a donor mission. And when we were there, the CEO announced that we had just passed 800,000 participants since our inception 22 years ago. And that's 800,000 from 68 countries. Put another way, there's about 16 million Jews in the world. That means that 1 out of every 20 Jews on the planet have participated in Birthright Israel. And even more amazingly, 1 out of every 10 American Jews, not one out of every 10 young American Jews, total American Jews have participated in Birthright Israel. Simply extraordinary. Birthright Israel has infused over $1.5 billion into the Israeli economy. It represents the largest customer of El Al Airlines. And here's something you may not know, and that is that out of the 800,000 figure that I cited a couple of minutes ago, over 115,000 of these young people are Israelis. mostly active duty soldiers. And this is actually the #1 in-demand program in the IDF. And for many Israeli young adults, it's their first opportunity to meet and interact with peers from the diaspora. So this doesn't just affect your children, but it's affecting Israeli society in a very, very powerful way. A quick word about impact. I just tried to cherry pick a few statistics to make an impression. 93% of participants are likely to be very much connected to Israel more than non-participants. 85% of participants consider Birthright Israel to be a life-changing experience. 84% of participants who are now parents are raising their children Jewish. And there are many more statistics which highlight the profound impact of a Birthright trip. And I'll be able to share with you in a couple of minutes where you can find those stats. So what does the trip include? Well, it includes round-trip airfare, hotel accommodations, group transportation in Israel, at least 2 meals a day, all organized activities and touring, and a very well-conceived and executed itinerary with every single detail and every moment thought through from the moment the wheels touch down at Ben Gurion Airport to when the participants leave to return home 10 days later. Not included are travel and health insurance, and the only cost is a $250 refundable deposit, which participants have the opportunity to contribute back if they'd like to. I just want to quote someone that if you haven't heard of him before, and you probably will after your children go on a trip. Our International Vice President for Educational Strategy is named Dr. Zohar Raviv. He is a brilliant educator, and he likes to say that Birthright Israel is not just a free trip, it's not just a program, it's not just a gift from one generation to the next, but rather it's become a strategic asset of the Jewish people. And it's the responsibility of the entire Jewish people, which segues over to a brief explanation of how Birthright Israel trips are funded, and specifically the role of Birthright Israel Foundation, which I'm affiliated with. Birthright Israel Foundation is a US-based tax-exempt organization founded 5 years after Birthright Israel itself. And the purpose of Birthright Israel Foundation was to help give young Jewish adults this gift of an educational and transformational trip to Israel. We raise funds at the foundation needed to ensure that this trip will always be available today, tomorrow, and always. And frankly, no one had any idea when Birthright began 22 years ago that it was going to take off the way it did. There were a lot of people that said it was a crazy idea, but here we are, the most successful education project ever. If you think about a pie chart, as far as funding Birthright Israel, I just want to share a couple of quick stats with you. 35% of funding for Birthright Israel comes from the state of Israel. In other words, the taxpayers of Israel are funding Birthright, which they consider to be so critically important for the future of the Jewish people, as well as for Israel diaspora relations. Roughly half, exactly 49%, comes from worldwide donors, individual donors, families, foundations, individuals. 13% comes from another program which we've just taken under our umbrella called Onward Israel, and you can learn about that. I'll show you where. And the remaining 3%, 2% comes from Jewish federations and 1% from the Jewish Agency for Israel. Each year, these sources fund close to $200 million. That's what we have. That's what we need every year to fund this program. And the costs, as you might imagine, are growing. The demand is great. We didn't have any participants for 2 years for obvious reasons. And so demand is high and inflation has increased the costs. I've asked Benny to provide links to websites in a correspondence that will be coming to you in the next couple of days for Birthright Israel and for Birthright Israel Foundation, along with a wonderful piece that was written by Dr. Raviv, who I told you about a few minutes ago. He's the heart and soul of our program. It's called The Spirit of Birthright Israel, and it's really terrific and so much information there. And I like the person who spoke before me, like Wayne, I just want to stick to the time limit that I was given by Benny. But anyway, a lot of helpful in-depth information there, which I think you will really find interesting. Plus the the websites for the foundation and for Birthright Israel. So Benny, with that, I'll turn it back to you, and happy to answer any questions at any time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Doug. Next, I'd like to introduce Amanda Budd from the Jewish Federation of Greater Atlanta. She's the Birthright Israel and Teen Engagement Coordinator. She actually just got back from Israel as well about a month ago, just to talk a little bit about the partnership that we have that helps make this all happen.
Thank you, Benny. Well, good evening, everybody. I first want to say that I'm so excited for all of your children that are getting ready to go on Birthright this winter. Like Benny said, I just came back from staffing the Atlanta community trip. Came back about a month ago, so the jet lag has finally worn off, but it was an incredible time and just a great chance to be back in Israel. So I'm very excited. I wish I could experience Birthright for the first time again, and I hope they all enjoy it. As the representative from the Jewish Federation of Greater Atlanta, I just want to touch on the fact that Federation is proud to be able to support Birthright Israel, the Birthright Foundation, as well as Hillels of Georgia. We firmly believe in educating college students and getting them to Israel, and Birthright's mission to get everybody to Israel as well. We just received statistics that there are thousands of Atlanta Birthright alumni since Birthright's inception and first trip. And with those thousands of alumni that are in Atlanta, we're proud the Federation is able to support Birthright alumni engagement when they return back to Atlanta. So what is this? When your children either graduate college and are planning to stay in Atlanta, we hope that they'll be involved in Next Gen, which is the Young Professionals Division of the Jewish Federation of Greater Atlanta. And this is where my work is housed. In addition to staffing and recruiting for Birthright trips, I'm working with our post-Birthright engagement and keeping everybody involved with Israel, with the Jewish community, with what it means to be Jewish, religiously, secularly, whatever, what have you, when they return back. And one of our programs that we're most proud of is the Birthright Microgrant program. So if you're a Birthright alum and under the age of 40, we have these things called Birthright Microgrants, which essentially, if you're hosting a program or an event with Birthright alumni, we'll reimburse you up to a certain amount for whether the event is closed or open, or if it's a Birthright bus reunion, up to $1,000 to see these events come to life, to continue this post-Birthright engagement. So that's really it that I have. Again, we're proud to be able to support this. And when your children come back and are ready to graduate, please send them my way.
Thank you so much. And one of those things I believe, Amanda, is a Shabbat dinner, which is very popular, I believe, right? They can get reimbursed for a Shabbat dinner.
Yes.
It's one of like the thing when you get back from Israel, like, hey, everyone, like, let's Shabbat time, like, let's make it happen. And so this is a great opportunity for the students to really kind of own it and have a great Shabbat meal, sponsored by the Federation. And next up, our last guru, if you will, from Hillel International, Josh Hartman, the Associate Vice President for Immersive Experiences. Josh, we call Josh probably every 5 minutes. But Josh really has a lot of great insight, and he's going to share a little bit about him, about Hillel International, and the Birthright, and how we work together here. And then at the end, we'll be available for questions in case there are some really in-depth conversation or questions that y'all may have. So Josh, take it away.
Sure. Thank you again for having me. I will say, I don't often jump on these calls with our individual Hillel partners. We have 76 Hillel partners that we're working with this winter season. Hillels of Georgia has a very special place in my heart, so I will certainly step away from the conference I'm at to be here with you all. So thank you for having me. I want to let you all know, first and foremost, Hillels of Georgia is currently the largest campus in the Hillel Birthright universe for this winter. So you have the most students going out of any of our campuses at the moment. Keep it going. Good job. Basically, I know we're going to get into like some details about the trip, just to kind of share a little bit about what our role is. I represent Hillel International, which is the global organization that supports Hillel movement across the globe, which is we're basically the largest Jewish student organization basically in the world. And so we support Hillels in 16 countries, one disputed territory. It includes the United States and Canada. We have over 500 Hillels across the world. And Tagley Birthright Israel is a very, very important program for us across the globe. Hillel International runs Birthright trips as a trip organizer. So as Doug was sharing before, Birthright Israel is the overarching organization. And for North America, at least, there are 7 trip organizers that each run these trips to Israel. We are very, very pleased as Hillel to be the largest provider for college-age students. And we pride ourselves in creating a really solid experience for your students, keeping in mind that the Birthright Israel trip is not just a trip. And I think it's really important in terms of framing here that it's not just the 10 days that your students are in Israel. It's about the what's going on before, how we're preparing them, how they're kind of reflecting before they go, and really importantly, how they reflect during the trip. You have to reflect while you're in the middle of it. And we really, really pride ourselves in giving those opportunities throughout the trip. And as Amanda was talking about in terms of engagement when you get back to campus and to the area, engagement when you come back. It's not a blip on the radar. We see in the research that Birthright Israel is a catalyst for Jewish identity development across Jewish youth across the world. So this is a really great opportunity. We're glad that your students are going. Our role in Hillel International as a trip organizer is to make sure that your students are staying healthy and safe and having a very enjoyable trip on the ground. My team, we have team members in the United States and in Israel. We run all of the trip operations. So everything from making sure we have a security guard on the bus to making sure that they know exactly what time they're showing up at whatever site they're going to the bigger picture of who's staffing the trip and how are we training the folks who will be taking care of your students while they're on the ground. So I'm glad to be here for any kind of questions that come up towards the end, and I'll look forward to meeting and interacting with several of your students on the ground in Israel this winter. So thanks again for having me.
Thank you so much, Josh. I appreciate it. Thank you all for being here. If you have any questions, we'll get those at the end. But now what I'd like to do is kind of dig into Tagley Birthright Israel 101. Can everyone see my screen? Thumbs up. Perfect. All right. So the first part is who we're going to be traveling with. And so the way that it works, 34 HGA participants, that's Hillels of Georgia, 1 tour guide, tour educator, 2 Hillels of Georgia staff, 1 medic/security guard. They're multi-talented in Israel. We have a bus driver, and then we've got our Israeli peers as well, which are the soldiers that join us. So in this year, it's 34 participants. In a normal year, non-COVID, it's usually 40 participants, but this year, just a little bit different. Next up, safety and security. And this is a piece that obviously is extremely important. And so I just want to be clear that Birthright Israel is in constant contact with Israeli security and safety authorities. The measures they take to go through is the same procedures used for Israeli school and student groups, and there's no effort or expense spared to provide the safety and security for the participants. And so every day they go through constantly and review, making sure everything is good to go. So from a security and safety standpoint, as a person that has experienced it, it is amazing, and I have always felt extremely safe, and I'm not just saying that. It is 100% true. Any questions? And we only have a few slides left, and then we'll get into the big questions. But I know that sometimes this is a very this is a very important topic, and so I just want to make sure if there are any questions that we have it related to safety and security. If you do, you can put it in the chat, or we can wait till the end. But I'll give just about 15 seconds to see if anyone has any questions in the chat. You know, when you count it out, 15 seconds is a long time. All right, so we're going to move to the next one. All right, so next, where will we not be traveling? Also very important, a lot of these questions. You can see the map here. We don't visit any area or drive on the roads deemed unsafe by Israeli authorities. Again, this goes back to the safety and security. Itineraries will be changed as security situations warrant, and participants will not leave the groups to travel on their own or explore during the trip. We are together. If we have some time in Jerusalem, we're all in one specific area. No one can go in a taxi and head out and all that kind of fun stuff. So this is where we will not be staying. And then where we will be staying. So kibbutzim, hostels, hotels, Bedouin tent in the desert, which is probably one of my favorites. And there's a certain level of standards that each location needs to be met for Birthright to actually have a relationship with that hotel, that kibbutzim, or even the Bedouin tent, for example. This is a sample itinerary. It is subject to change. This is what our students did last winter. And so I just wanted to give you guys, I'll just take a quick minute so you guys can see what we've done in the past. Again, everything is subject to change. Yes, I will share the slides after the meeting. Not a problem. And this will also be recorded, or this is recorded, so we can review it there too. But again, this is a sample itinerary. One of the things that's a little bit different with our group as opposed to others because of our Atlanta community trip and our relationship with the Federation is that one of our stops is to go see our partner city of Yokneam Megiddo. And so it's something really important as we build relationships with our Hillels into, for our standpoint, the greater Atlanta Jewish community. There are certain places that everyone needs to go and experience. But again, this is it is a very jam-packed itinerary. Sleep is for the week, just kidding, but there's only maybe 5 hours, 6 hours, days of hiking up Masada. Sometimes you'll sleep in the Bedouin tent. You have maybe 3 or 4 hours, and then you're up hiking and you enjoy the Dead Sea. So there's it is go, 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 and that's just something that everyone should know going into it. Any questions about the sample itinerary? And this is a great crowd. No questions. I love it. Everyone's just ready to get off. I get it. All right. So frequently asked questions. So we're going to hit all these, and Doug actually hit 1 or 2 of these already. But we'll run through this, and then after this, we will open up questions for everyone. So the first thing is COVID-19 protocol. As y'all know or would guess, the policy is always subject to change. But right now, Israel no longer requires you to present a negative COVID test prior to boarding. According to the Birthright website, it also says trips starting November 22nd and forward, participants will no longer be required to show proof of a COVID-19 vaccine. And I believe you do have to be vaccinated as well. Next question is visitor policy. This is, hey, I have family in Israel. When can I see them? Is there an opportunity? The answer is yes. However, you can't leave to go and see them at nighttime. They can come and visit you when we have free time. But that's one of those things that your student will want to speak to the tour educator and the staff members to work on when that free time is to allow them the opportunity to see their family. Participant policy. This is just basically you're part of the trip and you can't leave to, go and hang out, at the beach in Tel Aviv, just hang out and not do anything else. It is a 10-day experience, and so everyone needs to do everything. And so no one can just go off and leave and do what they want to. There's, we've got a strict schedule that we want to make sure and places to go and see and experience. Doug talked about it earlier. There's a $250 deposit. And so that will, again, that is something they'll get back after the trip. And students will not be considered to be fully ready to go and be eligible for the trip until that deposit is paid. So if they've not paid their deposit yet, please make sure that they do that. The next piece is something, and Doug alluded to it, is on the Birthright website. There's a packing list and other resources. We won't get into the nitty gritty. It is winter. At times it snows. It has the ability to get a little chilly. So I liken the weather to Atlanta or Georgia, if you will. So I think layers are better than heavy coats, but that's just my personal opinion. So you can plan accordingly there. And again, in the email that we'll send out tomorrow, it'll have information about packing list. The night out policy, usually there's a night where go to Jerusalem or Tel Aviv, but everyone is together, can't go off and do anything else. Again, we want to make sure everyone stays safe and does everything in the right way. And so a night out policy is not, all right, everyone, you can go out and find your way back in the morning. It's we all go together to one area. You have X amount of time. We get everyone back together. We get on the bus and we go back to the hotel. The next piece, what's covered, Doug spoke about that earlier, in terms of 2 meals, flight, hotel, all that kind of good stuff. Extra insurance. Josh, I'm sorry, I'm going to have you jump in if you would and talk a little bit about that piece, the extra insurance. Sorry if I put you on the spot.
No, it's totally fine. Deal with this all the time. So we cover very, 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 very baseline levels of insurance for our participants. Very, very baseline. So like emergency level type stuff. So somebody breaks their ankle and they need to go to the hospital and get a cast or something like that. Like we have coverage for that. But if any of your students have pre-existing conditions of any sort, asthma, heart condition, anything like that, that like might be a bigger thing, you should definitely get extra insurance, like extra travel and health insurance. And we really highly recommend that everybody gets that insurance if they have anything, just to be safe as an extra security blanket. It's really not that expensive, actually. And the problem with U.S. insurance policies and American medical insurance policy is that a lot of the times you have to pay everything up front and you have to wait for reimbursement, and it takes a little while. So U.S. insurance companies will generally be able to figure it out, but we highly recommend that you look for extra insurance. We have an insurance company that we work with that is great, and they do short-term policies. And again, like I said, it's cheap. It's on our website, and you could sign up for it based on the days that they're there. You can also pay for insurance, and the reason why we noted here is extra. If your students are extending their trip beyond their Birthright trip, they're going to need to make sure that they are fully covered by getting their own insurance for any days that they're there beyond the trip, which they're allowed to extend their trip if they do that. But they'll want to make sure they get that insurance just in the event anything happens. And if folks have any questions about that, you can take a look at the website, and we could also answer some in the Q&A at the end here.
Yep. Whoops, sorry. Thank you, Josh. I appreciate that. Next, traveling with siblings. It is allowed. We do try and make that happen. It does get a little bit difficult if, for our Hillels of Georgia trips, where if one sibling attends Georgia and the other one attends Alabama, for example, we don't allow that because we're winners here. Just kidding. Just messing for all you folks out there who enjoy football. We try to accommodate, but sometimes it just doesn't work out that way because we will prioritize Hillels of Georgia first. And then day of departure. This is a big piece where my experience is, and my suggestion is, a lot of us are leaving out of Atlanta. That said, getting to your destination a day before, really important because you don't know what's going to happen. And so I suggest arriving a day early. If you live in Atlanta, the Atlanta airport, you still may want to arrive a day early. And then everyone meets together as a group. Your staff member gets everyone geared up, And then as a group, we go on the trip and go to the next step. And so those flights are not out yet. So I don't want to say you're going to go stop here and have here, but if it was Delta, right, there's no direct flight from Atlanta to Delta yet. So you just kind of know that there's probably going to be a stop somewhere else before you hit Israel. So those are the FAQs that we get a lot. I'm now going to open it up for any questions. I'm going to stop share. And so if you have questions, you can put it in the chat. You can raise your hand, but we've got 22 minutes. I don't want to keep y'all for 22 minutes if you don't want to be here. But I want to give you guys the opportunity with all of our experts that are on here to ask questions. So I will open it up. No questions? Yes, this is my real hair. Good.
I was gonna say I can share a question that folks might have, but they may not know that they have it yet. People are probably asking about flight information. I know we talked about it just a minute ago, but we don't send the names over to the airline until about 2 months or so before the flight, because of the way it's a group ticket. We can't actually do it earlier, and so your student will get an email directly that says you've been assigned to this trip. Go to the Birthright app and you can learn more about your flight information. I just want to, while we have a whole bunch of parents here, be aware of the fact that flights do change, especially in this current travel environment. If any of you have been traveling recently, you know that airlines cancel and change flights all the time. And it's possible that your flight to Israel will change. And that's okay. We'll make sure your student gets to Israel, no problem. But it might change your domestic flight. So if you're trying to get your student there from Miami and you book the flight, and then all of a sudden the Birthright flight changes by 2 hours, it may not be the right domestic flight. So I would just recommend that if you're booking anything, to try to make it a changeable sort of a thing. And also, we can give you flight information that we have now, but it's very subject to change, and it might. But we'll be assigning people in the next month or so. So if folks be careful and are patient, that'd be great.
Thank you for that. Some other questions that have come in. If your student wants to extend the trip, that is an option. While you're over in Israel, the tour educator and the staff will give that option to, if you want to extend your trip, and then you pay while you're over there. As I understand it, fees have been skyrocketing, so just something to be aware of. But that is something that your student can do, and what will happen is everyone will go to the airport, right? We all want to be together, get to the airport, and then from there, if they've extended their trip, they can go on their way. So there's that. There's a question about combining Birthright and Onward.
Okay, wait, Benny, real quick, Benny, on that one, on the extensions, just because I had a conversation with our travel company last week about this.
All right.
We do recommend that you try to do your extension before you leave for Israel. And for those I see some of the staff shaking their head being yes, that's probably a good idea. This last summer was not a good gauge of the success level that normally is. Usually you'll be, as soon as you get your flight assignment, like I was just mentioning before, as soon as you get that flight information, you can contact the travel agency and try to get an extension before you leave. You can do it on the ground also, but the problem is when you're on the ground, your student's going to need to be picking up the phone and calling the airline during the program. And it would obviously be it would be better for them to not have to be stepping away from the program and get the extension on the front end. And if you have trouble or anything like that, we can try to help you navigate that piece from our side.
I stand corrected. All right, you can combine Birthright and Onward, although for us, our Onward trips take place, and I believe all Onward trips take place in the summertime. So there is that ability to do so. So you just need to just kind of consider winter versus summer, and then summer trips falling into Onward. Another question, is it a total of 34 universities? No. So 34 students is just how many are on the bus. We as Hillels of Georgia have 3 buses that we're with. So 34 is just how many a bus has, but we have multiple buses. Are there spaces open for this winter's trip? I'm not entirely sure for the Hillels of Georgia trips, to be honest with you. We do have a waiting list, and we do know people will back out once, times and flights and whatever. So my suggestion is, if you've not had your child sign up yet, I would do so and get in the system, because folks have a tendency to back out, and registration is open until October 1st. So something to know. In terms of getting together before the trip, each campus has their programming that goes on. So there will be opportunities for the participants to get together, get to know each other. It could be at Birthright Shabbat, for example. So each campus will have programming to allow for students the opportunity to get together and know each other. As Josh spoke about earlier, the opportunity that Hillel has over other providers is really building the relationships before, during, and then after. And so it's really something that's important to us, and so something that's that all of our campus directors will do. Did I miss anything?
There's a number of questions about Onward and summer dates.
Okay. I don't know if we have the official dates. I believe we're looking at May. But again,
that's correct. It would be early to mid-May. Sorry to interrupt, Benny. I'm Russell, Benny's colleague, working with Josh on the summer. It would be a May departure with Onward tentatively planned to start in the first week of January, or excuse me, first week of June.
Thank you. All right. So someone had asked about deadlines for the summertime. They have not even opened yet. I would guess probably January is when those will open. Can a student opt to return flight to New York instead of Atlanta? If they leave out of Atlanta, it's we have everyone come back to Atlanta. Josh, are there circumstances where someone could change their flight if they want, if we had a layover in New York, for example? No,
because it's a group ticket, you have to take it from the departure city through to Israel and then from Israel back. The only other option you would have would be to cancel your return flight and instead just kind of pay for your own flight from Tel Aviv back. It honestly probably is more financially prudent to just take the flight and then, it's annoying to do that, to do the bounce back and forth. Totally get that. But I will say, if you're a New York person and you're not on a New York trip, I don't want to speak out of turn here, but you do have some spaces available on a New York departure with the Hillels of Georgia right now that you could always think about switching to. So,
yep, also true. So if that is an option, we can definitely talk about that as well. Coming in fast and furious now. The way that our buses work, again, there'll be the way it'll work. There are some buses that are going to be just full of UGA students. That is our biggest cohort. And then we'll have a couple of our other buses that will be filled with Georgia Tech students, Kennesaw students, Georgia State, SCAD, the list goes on. So that's kind of how it works here, because Hillels of Georgia encompasses all of our universities. So it'll be multiple campuses represented in our cohort. All right. Good question. There's a question about, are all Hillel trips, or are all Birthright trips the same? For the most part, they have to hit certain pieces that across the board that everyone does, but there are specific instances where some are more tailored to biking or hiking or certain other pieces. But for the most part, there are certain things that all Birthright trips have to do, and then there are other things that are done. So,
Benny, I'll just mention that there's actually, believe it or not, over 120 different types of trips. I mean, and Birthright Israel continues to evolve from, like you said, hiking, biking, scuba diving, entrepreneurship, culinary, LGBTQ, the developmentally challenged. I mean, you name it. Birthright Israel keeps adapting. So you're right. There's a core curriculum, but there's a continually growing array of choices for young people, which is great.
Right. And I will also say, just because I'm gonna put my Hillel International trip organizer hat on for a minute. Hillel International actually offers a lot of those niche trips as well. But I think that there's since I have a captive audience here, I'll just say that there's a little bit of a misconception that certain trips that one trip organizer only does outdoor related stuff and no other trip organizer does anything related to adventure, outdoor whitewater rafting, that kind of like all of us as trip organizers. First of all, we all work very closely together and we're interacting with the same sort of sites a lot of the time, but you're going to get physical activity in almost every trip. Well, in every trip, basically, you're going to get a wide variety of different types of activities. And really it's about, honestly, the difference between the trip organizers really comes down to the educational slant of the actual trip, like the way that the organizer delivers the program, and also any religious affiliation with the trip in terms of denomination. So Hillel International, along with a couple of other organizers, are considered non-denominational. So we operate from a pluralistic experience, a pluralistic environment. There are other organizers that are affiliated with Orthodox or with the conservative movement, which is great if that's something that that folks are more interested in being part of. But again, we have a very good connection point. I will also say, Benny, to the question that you'd mentioned to me earlier, one of the things that we pride ourselves on with Hillel International is that all of our staff are basically Hillel professionals and college administrative professionals, pretty much across the board. And so when it comes to students who are experiencing all sorts of support needs, so folks who have depression, anxiety, a variety of mental health, things that they're working through, we have staff who do this for a living outside of Birthright. And we also do very extensive training with our staff on mental health and wellness, sexual misconduct, development, growth and development on these trips, and how to make sure that we're providing an inclusive space. We actually have psychologists and counselors that we have available for students on the ground in the event that they ever need it. We have doctors available for students on the ground that might need it. And because, again, most of our staff are Hillel professionals, we really get the college student vibe, and we really strive to take care of your students the way that we know you'd want us to be taking care of them. It's very important to us that we treat every student as though they're one of our own, and we want to make sure that they're feeling supported in every way.
Awesome. Thank you, Josh. So we've got 10 minutes. Any other questions? Again, so our next steps here, as y'all think about if there are any other questions, we're going to send out an email just kind of recapping. It'll have this recording, it'll have the slides, it'll have the websites that Doug spoke about earlier. And then obviously if there are any questions that you have, you can email me, and you will also hear from the campus director, executive directors from the campuses, who will follow up with you as well and tell you all kinds of good stuff that are happening, like Israel Shabbat dinners and Israel Fest and Shabbat dinner, just regular Shabbat dinners, not Israel related. So all kinds of great things. So with that,
Benny, there's one question.
Yep.
Naomi Hutchins has a really good question about, do you not have to fly from Georgia if you are going on this trip? So I think we should talk about how our flights are planning to work a little bit.
Yeah, so the way that we have a total of, we have two types of buses, one leaving out of Atlanta and one leaving out of New York. Some leaving out of Atlanta and one leaving out of New York. So if you're leaving out of New York, those folks need to find their way to New York. And then if you're leaving out of Atlanta, obviously, if you live in Atlanta, a lot easier. But if you didn't, you'd have to find your way to Atlanta, and we start and come back to the same location.
And the reason, so that some people understand why we have a bus in New York, is that we have a large amount of students who are from the Northeast, particularly for our Emory campus. And we wanted to be able to provide an opportunity for the Hillels of Georgia cohort to go at the same time, even though those students may already be out of their dorms and be back at home, which might be in the New York, Boston, New Jersey area. That's the reason for having one exit point for this trip in New York.
Thank you, Wayne, for that. Another question came in. So that really becomes, it depends on if your son goes to school in Georgia. The thought is he'd probably want to come, if he went to UGA, for example, and wants to go on an Atlanta, a Hillels of Georgia trip with his friends and community, then he'd probably want to leave out of Atlanta, and that's all squared away when they go into the Birthright website and sign up. If New York is an option, and that's something of interest to folks, we have that available as well.
Yeah, Naomi, you can, if you'll get in touch with, so Naomi, if you're wanting to leave out of New York, I would suggest that, Naomi, where's your student going to school?
Hi, good evening, everyone. My son's at Georgia Tech, so I would prefer that he, of course, go
with the Georgia Tech students.
Yeah.
And I think that all of those Georgia Tech students are leaving out of Atlanta.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep,
And
that's awesome.
Atlanta it is.
All right, and then if you guys are up for it, it was a suggestion, so thank you very much. I'm happy to connect y'all so that you guys can kibitz with each other as well. I know that we're big in communicating with each other, so if that's an option that you'd like to do, I'm happy to connect y'all to each other, and you can, kibitz and talk about Birthright and all the fun stuff, being parents and wanting to go yourselves as well. All right, 7:55. If there are no other questions, thank y'all so much for your time. I know that there are a lot of other things happening, so I really appreciate you taking the time to learn more about Birthright. I want to thank our guests for hopping on. I think there was a lot of great insight. Again, you'll receive an email tomorrow with some more information just so you can digest it a little bit more. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out. Again, thank you all so much, and we're excited to have the opportunity to lead these trips with your children on them, and really be part of this immersive experience that they will remember for their lifetime. So thank you all very much. I really appreciate it, and y'all have a great night.
Thank you, Benny.
Thank y'all.